As we all know, Ubisoft is an evil corporation on top of making progressively worse games. Their single-player games have more microtransactions than most live services, their stories have become soulless and mind-numbing, and even if you aren't part of the anti-woke crowd, their writing is still universally hated. Their gameplay loops have become more iterative across all their franchises, and JC is a word I would say, but it hasn't been 1 minute yet. There is one thing, however. One game that I will give them partial credits on, a passing grade at the very least. Their only game in recent memory Ubisoft has made that I can say was somewhat pretty good, at least for me. That one game is Gods and Monsters, Ubisoft's last new IP, I think, before focusing solely on Rainbow, Assassin's Creed, and Far Cry. I'm not counting Skull and Bones because that IP has technically existed for over a decade. I want to take a few minutes of your time to explain to you how Gods and Monsters isn't the worst thing ever made, and how you should at least consider giving it a try. If you already hate Ubisoft games with a burning passion, I don't think this video will win you over, but if you are a member of the disgusting subhuman subculture known as the general audience, and you haven't heard of Gods and Monsters, then this video might just interest you. Also, JC is a fucking fat ass. Gods and Monsters is a game that was released on December 3rd of 2020, which is funnily enough the same time I'm recording this. Wait a minute, Tom, isn't it called Immortals Phoenix? No, shut up. Actually, that's a good starting point because it is a ridiculously funny story. Back during E3 of 2019, Ubisoft released a trailer for a new game made by the AC Odyssey team called Gods and Monsters. The art style was pretty much identical to the finished product, the only actual difference was the game's name. However, at some point between the announcement and the game's release, Ubisoft changed the name from Gods and Monsters to that. The official story was a trademark dispute with Marlboro's power bottom male wife Monster Energy, and instead of fighting a legal battle over the name, Ubisoft just opted to change the name to whatever the hell that is. If you want my opinion though, I don't buy any of that. There are quite a few franchises with the word monster in it, and Monster Energy hasn't gone after any of them, so I don't get why they would single out Ubisoft specifically. Unless the CEO of Monster Energy was also annoyed with the core combat update, I don't get why Gods and Monsters was suddenly a problem. Given how most of Gooby's franchises go by the same pattern of franchise name, then name of that game in franchise, my guess was in the event this became a long-running series, they wanted a franchise name instead of calling future sequels Gods and Monsters 2, 3, 4, and so on. For the rest of this video, however, I'm not going to refer to the game as whatever the hell that mess is. I'll be calling it Gods and Monsters because I think that name actually goes hard. Now, if you're looking at any of the footage I'm playing in the background, you're probably thinking that it looks eerily similar to another open world game that came out 3 years prior to this one's release. And you would be right. For all intents and purposes, Gods and Monsters is a Breath of the Wild clone. Ubisoft saw the insane success Zelda had with its latest open-world game and hoped to replicate it. Unfortunately for them, they didn't, but I'm still going to defend this game because despite its shameless cloning of Breath of the Wild, the game does have a few of its own legs to stand on and actually doesn't do some stuff Breath of the Wild did, which makes it more enjoyable for me personally. Its combat gameplay is nothing like Zelda though. It's more similar to Assassin's Creed Odyssey, but slightly better since things aren't nearly as tanky in this game. You have your basic light and heavy attacks as well as a wheel of skills to use. The main gameplay loop is to utilize your skills, heavy attacks, and parries to build up a stun meter where you can then wail on them with your light attacks. Your skills do use up your stamina bar though, and yes, it does work just like Breath of the Wild when it comes to climbing and swimming. Lights and parries also quickly refill your stamina as well as potions. This game does not have a deep and interesting food crafting system like Zelda, it just has 4 different potions that require a single ingredient each: health, stamina, defense, and damage potions. Another thing to hopefully give you some sense of relief, if you hate the number crunching and obnoxious RPG elements the modern Assassin's Creed games have, this game is not nearly as egregious. It is in New Game Plus, but I didn't fuck with New Game Plus very hard, so I don't really care. There are a bunch of weapons and armor to loot, but they all have the same damage and defense stats. The only difference between them is the perks you get for equipping them, and I would say that they are actually strong enough to make a difference. One of them just gives you free stamina bars, which is kind of busted in the early game. When you do upgrade your damage and defense stats, it applies across all gear, so it comes down to whatever bonus perks you want. Also fashion, which is like way more important. Can I say something slightly controversial? I didn't really vibe with Tears of the Kingdom. Besides the reused open world, I didn't really like all the extra mechanics added on top of what was already a really good Zelda game. It almost felt bloaty and didn't really feel all that necessary. Breath of the Wild was already an amazing game, and I wasn't really interested in Breath of the Wild with a bunch of extra shit on top. I'm a huge proponent of the saying, less is more, and that's why Gods and Monsters was a lot more enjoyable to me than Tears of the Kingdom. The game doesn't have a sandbox open world to the degree of the Switch Zelda games, but there is some tomfoolery you can get up to. Maybe my brain is just too smooth and can't enjoy deep and rich gameplay mechanics, but the simplified version of Zelda's gameplay in the form of Gods and Monsters is enough for my Coomer P brain. So besides combat, what else does Gods and Monsters have cooking? It's got some cool stuff. Its character creator allows me to create a character that isn't ugly, which is always important when playing a Western video game. In fact, most of the characters are actually pretty decent looking, especially my wife Athena, voiced by Cassandra's VA. I mean, she's not as hot as my adorable silver-haired tomboy, but, she's a close second. After a while, though, I did try to change my character to make her look like Cassandra, but to be honest, she ended up looking more like Lara Croft, which is still pretty damn cash. Besides fighting things, the other half of Gods and Monsters gameplay consists of the side activities, of which 90% of them are puzzles. Honestly, I would argue that Gods and Monsters is mostly a puzzle game, as it sure does feel like I end up doing more puzzles than fighting games, and I kinda like that. The biggest thing you'll end up doing are shrines— Tartarus faults. I joke, but they are just like Zelda shrines. There are puzzle rooms that can have any form of puzzle that you need to solve. Archery rooms, balls, lasers, all kinds of good shit. They even find some ways to incorporate your combat skills. You can use the giant hammer slam to send things like balls and boxes flying. You can use the shield bash to go through lasers, which you do need an upgrade for that one though. I didn't record it, but there was a puzzle that involved gliding. Yes, this game does have its own paraglider, and using the spear jump ability to gain height to reach new areas while gliding. This game also has the arrow guiding skill from AC Origins and Odyssey. Though this isn't the only thing this game takes from Odyssey, here's the Athena statue from the Parthenon in Athens. In fact, you can find this statue of Athena plastered all over the map of Gods and Monsters. I can't prove it, but I feel like a lot of the buildings in this game are reused assets from Odyssey, but I'm too lazy to actually check. Now, I feel like I need to reiterate this here. If you enjoy well-thought-out, compelling open-world games with unique quests and activities, you might be disappointed here. This is very much a checklist game. The map is absolutely littered with icons, a majority of which are specific types of puzzles. There's the fresco puzzles where you need to line up 4 panels. There's arrow challenges where you have to guide the arrow through multiple hoops. They do find ways to spice up each one. There's extra puzzles added on top of each one to make them slightly more interesting, but you will end up doing the same activities throughout the whole game. The game even has you going to high-up monuments to scout out and mark all the nearby activities on the map, which will take around 2 minutes because it wants you to mark everything from the most elaborate puzzle to the most useless collectible. Which, at least the world isn't boring to look at. If there is one thing I can never criticize Ooey Gooey on, it's their level designers. Every open world they make is insanely gorgeous and fun to just look around and travel, but in most of their cases they don't put anything to do in those amazing worlds. The main bread and butter, though, are the Knot Shrines. They have the most interesting puzzles on top of having the most valuable reward. Zeus's Lightning, which is like the orbs from Zelda, only here they're used to only upgrade stamina. Health is increased from finding ambrosia in the open world. Now here's where things become kinda hard for me to use as a reason for playing the game. Not because it's bad, but because it's very much an acquired taste. The story and writing for this game is going to be very hit or miss for a lot of people. Unlike its sexier brother, Breath of the Wild, Gods and Monsters writing is a lot more comedic and unserious. The game is a story told by Prometheus to Zeus, who, by the way, are voiced by Marco and Nikolaos from AC Odyssey. For the entire game, you are hearing the voices of the two talk about what's going on in the story and their reaction to it. Prometheus is mostly the straight man, and Zeus will either be your most favorite or most hated character depending on your sense of humor.
The Lemnian women. Even petrified in stone, they still reeked of Aphrodite's punishment. Literally.
You know that's a conspiracy, right? A bunch of women on Lemnos got woke and killed all the men. So the mortals pinned it on Aphrodite, saying that she made the women smell bad so their husbands wouldn't touch them.
That actually kind of makes sense.
You'd be surprised what summering on Lesbos can teach you. Oh yes, remind me to erase my own faults with narration. Zeus, truly a good person, murdered his first wife by getting her to turn into a fly and then ate her.
Wait, that's what happened to Metis? I thought she was visiting her sister in Babylon. Oops.
For me personally, a lot of the writing felt millennial, quirky, and very PC, which can be very annoying, but it did have some moments that made me exhale out of my nose very hard. If that type of writing isn't your thing, then you will probably hate this game, because it's very much like a modern Sony game, where the two are just always talking all of the time. You will likely end up hearing Zeus and Prometheus more than your own inner monologue. I won't go too deep into spoilers in the unlikely event you actually decide to try this game, but I will give you a brief rundown of the plot because why not? An ancient evil from centuries past has awakened, and 4 champions, whose duty it is to slay the evil, fail in their mission, and it's up to the protagonist to travel to 4 different regions of the land and acquire the powers of each of the 4 champions to slay the ancient evil and rescue their loved one. Now, if it sounds like I'm talking about Breath of the Wild, it's because I am. But I'm also talking about the plot of Gods and Monsters. It is the same as Zelda. Instead of 4 champions, it's 4 gods from the Greek pantheon, and instead of Ganon, it's the Titan Typhon. Typhon's a Titan, right? And instead of a princess to rescue and shag, the main character Phoenix is trying to rescue their sibling, whom they could also be shagging. I won't judge. The 4 champions you have to rescue this time around are Aphrodite, Athena, my wife, Ares, and Hephaestus. In typical Ubicock fashion, the game is composed of different regions, and the main story segment in each region is completely disconnected from the rest of the story, so it all kind of feels disjointed and unimpactful. Though in this case, I can't really blame them since they were just copying Zelda, and Zelda did do this for Breath of the Wild. I've never been a fan of this writing style because of what I said a second ago. Everything feels disjointed, and things never end up coming together until the very last moment where it doesn't matter anymore. Aphrodite and Hephaestus are literally married, but they don't interact until after both of their individual stories are concluded, which kinda sucks. This might be another acquired taste thing. Maybe you do enjoy this kind of thing, and if you do, that's okay. I won't yuck your yum so long as you're having fun. That's about everything I have to say on Gods and Monsters. Hopefully something I said today made you interested in, at the very least, watching a YouTube playthrough of this game. Now that I'm thinking about it, Gods and Monsters was the last game I bought from those French taffers. After this and AC Valhalla, I came to the realization that this studio isn't the same one who made the Ezio trilogy and Black Flag. It was time to jump ship before things got even worse, and oh boy, did they get worse. I told myself I was gonna buy AC Shadows if it went on sale for at least like $40, but after seeing the Attack on Titan shit, suddenly I don't feel like it anymore. If you're not interested in playing Gods and Monsters or any game from Ubercox, then try playing Expedition 33, because if you beat the tower mode in that game, you can give everyone in your party white hair, and there's literally nothing more peak than that. Anyways, I'm done for now. Like and subscribe, otherwise I'll go tell my mommy. Okay, bye!